The scent of fresh roses still lingered in the air, mingling with the soft glow of candles that Emma had carefully arranged across the restaurant table. Tonight was supposed to be special. 4 years together, and she was finally ready to take the next step, moving in with the man she loved. She had imagined this moment 100 times. The smile on Liam's face, the warmth in his eyes as she told him the good news. Instead, she was met with something else. Guilt. A sinking feeling settled in her stomach as she watched him shift uncomfortably in his seat, his hands gripping the edge of the table, as if he wanted to be anywhere but here. Emma, I need to tell you something. The weight of those words crushed her before he even spoke the next ones. I've been seeing someone else. The world tilted. The clinking of glasses, the soft chatter of other diners, all of it faded into a dull hum as his words sank in. Someone else. Her mind raced, grasping at possibilities. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe it was a moment of weakness. Maybe it's Olivia. Her heart stopped. Olivia. Her best friend. The woman who had been by her side since childhood. The one person she trusted more than anyone else in the world. Emma's hands trembled as she set down her fork, the once appetizing meal now tasting like ash in her mouth. She forced herself to look at him, her voice barely above a whisper. How long? Liam exhaled, rubbing his temples. 6 months. 6 months. A bitter laugh escaped her lips, though it felt more like a sob. All those nights Olivia comforted her when Liam was busy. All the times Olivia swore she hated men who cheated. It was all a lie. I never meant to hurt you, Liam said, reaching for her hand. She pulled away as if burned. Don't, she whispered, her voice shaking. Don't sit there and act like this wasn't a choice. You didn't just hurt me. You destroyed me. Liam said something else, but she wasn't listening anymore. Her vision blurred as she stood up, barely aware of the restaurant's curious glances. Her chair scraped against the floor as she turned away, leaving behind everything she had ever known. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing her cry. But as soon as she stepped out into the cold night air, the tears fell freely. She had lost her boyfriend. She had lost her best friend. And worst of all, she had lost herself. But what Emma didn't know was that fate had better plans for her. Plans that would lead her to a love she never expected. The world didn't stop for heartbreak. Emma learned that the hard way. 2 weeks had passed since that night, the night she lost both the man she loved and the friend she trusted. And yet life moved on. The sun still rose, people still laughed, and the city buzzed with energy as if nothing had happened. But for Emma, everything had changed. She hadn't responded to Liam's calls or Olivia's desperate texts. What could they possibly say to make it better? That they were sorry? That they didn't mean to hurt her? Sorry wouldn't erase the betrayal. So she cut them off completely. She moved out of the apartment she had once shared with Liam, crashing at her sister's place until she figured things out. Now, as she stood in front of the mirror, staring at the dark circles under her eyes and the hollowness in her gaze, she made a decision. She was done crying. She refused to let this define her. With a deep breath, she picked up her phone and dialed a number she hadn't called in years. Emma? The voice on the other end was warm, familiar. Hey, Aunt Grace, she said, forcing a smile into her voice. Do you still need help at the bookstore? A pause. Then a knowing chuckle. Of course, sweetheart. Come by any time. And just like that, she took her first step forward. The bell chimed as Emma pushed open the door to Grace's books, the scent of aged paper and fresh coffee filling her senses. The small, cozy bookstore had always been her safe haven as a child, a place where she could lose herself in stories when the real world felt too overwhelming. Aunt Grace, a woman in her late 50s with a kind smile and eyes full of wisdom, pulled her into a tight hug the moment she saw her. You don't have to explain, sweetheart, she said softly. Just know that you're always welcome here. Emma swallowed the lump in her throat. Thank you. Throwing herself into work was exactly what she needed. The days passed in a blur of organizing shelves, recommending books to customers, and rediscovering a part of herself she had forgotten. For the first time in weeks, She felt like she could breathe again. And then one evening, everything shifted. It was late. The store was quiet, with only a few customers browsing the aisles. Emma stood behind the counter, engrossed in a novel, when the door swung open. She didn't look up at first. But then, a deep, unfamiliar voice broke the silence. "Do you have any recommendations for someone who hasn't picked up a book in years?" Emma glanced up, and her breath hitched. The man standing in front of her was tall, with a rugged handsomeness that felt effortless. Dark hair, sharp features, and eyes that held something unreadable. There was an air of quiet confidence about him, but also something else. A hint of weariness. She blinked, realizing she had been staring. "That depends," she said, slipping into her usual customer service mode. "What kind of stories do you like?" The man smirked slightly, as if amused by her hesitation. "Surprise me." Something about him intrigued her. He wasn't like the usual customers who wandered in. There was a mystery in his eyes, a story untold. And for the first time since her heartbreak, Emma felt curious. She didn't know it yet, but this stranger was about to change everything. Emma tapped her fingers against the wooden counter, eyeing the man in front of her. His request was simple, "Surprise me," but something about the way he said it made her pause. His voice was deep, steady, but there was a hint of something else beneath the surface. Something guarded. She tilted her head, scanning the bookshelves behind her. "All right," she said slowly, pulling out a copy of The Shadow Between Us. "How about this? It's got a little bit of everything: mystery, romance, revenge." The man took the book from her hands, his fingers brushing against hers briefly. Emma ignored the unexpected spark that shot up her arm. "Sounds interesting." He turned the book over, reading the back cover. "But what do you think? Do you recommend it?" Emma arched a brow. "Would I hand you a book I didn't recommend?" A smirk tugged at the corner of his lips. "Fair point." He tapped the book against his palm. "I'll take it." She rang up the purchase, still feeling oddly aware of his presence. As he pulled out his wallet, she glanced at him again, curiosity getting the better of her. "You don't look like someone who hasn't read in years," she commented. His smirk faded slightly, replaced by something unreadable. "Life got in the way," he said simply. Emma didn't push. She knew that tone all too well. It was the same one she had used whenever someone asked if she was okay after Liam's betrayal. People carried their own burdens. Some, like her, chose to drown in them. Others, like this man, locked them away behind casual smiles and easy conversation. She handed him his receipt. "Hope you like it." He took it, but instead of walking away, he hesitated. "What's your name?" Emma blinked. She hadn't expected that. "Emma," she answered cautiously. He nodded, tucking the book under his arm. "I'm Alex." Alex. The name suited him, strong, direct. "Well, Alex," she said, trying to keep things light, "if you hate the book, don't come back and yell at me." That smirk returned, this time a little softer. "No promises." And with that, he turned and walked out, leaving behind a strange mix of emotions swirling inside her. She didn't know why, but something told her this wasn't the last time she'd see him. And she was right. The next few days passed quietly, the routine of the bookstore settling Emma into a comfortable rhythm. She liked the predictability of it, stacking shelves, helping customers, losing herself in stories that weren't her own. But despite her best efforts, her mind kept drifting back to Alex. It wasn't just because he was attractive, though she couldn't deny that fact. It was something else. Something about the way he carried himself, the weight behind his words. He was a man with a story, and for some reason, she wanted to know what it was. She told herself it was just harmless curiosity. But when the bell above the door chimed one evening, and she looked up to see him standing there again, she couldn't ignore the way her heart gave a small, unexpected jump. "You're back," she said, more surprised than she meant to sound. Alex held up The Shadow Between Us. "Finished it." Emma blinked. "Already?" He shrugged. "You were right. It had everything: mystery, romance, revenge. I couldn't put it down." She crossed her arms, leaning slightly against the counter. "So, Are you here to yell at me about the ending? A slow smile curved his lips. No, I actually like the ending. Then what brings you back? His gaze held hers for a second longer than necessary. I was hoping for another recommendation. Emma wasn't sure why that made warmth spread through her chest. She turned, running her fingers along the book's spines before pulling one out. All the light we cannot see. Something different this time, she said, handing it to him. It's about two people who should have never met, but fate had other plans. Alex studied the cover before taking it from her hands. Sounds promising. She rang up his purchase, aware of his steady presence on the other side of the counter. So, he said casually, slipping his card back into his wallet. How long have you been working here? Emma hesitated, caught off guard by the question. A few weeks, she admitted. I needed a fresh start. Alex didn't ask for details. He simply nodded, as if he understood that sometimes people needed to start over. Maybe next time, I'll recommend you a book, he said, amusement flickering in his eyes. Emma scoffed. Oh, so you think you can out-recommend me now? His lips twitched. Maybe. She rolled her eyes but couldn't stop the small smile that formed. As he walked toward the door, she found herself calling out, See you next time, Alex. He paused, glancing back over his shoulder. Yeah, he said, voice softer this time. See you next time, Emma. And just like that, something shifted between them. The next time Alex walked into the bookstore, it was raining. The door swung open with a gust of cold wind, and Emma looked up from the register just in time to see him shaking water droplets from his hair. His dark jacket was damp from the downpour, and he ran a hand through his hair before his eyes found hers. Rain caught me off guard, he said, dropping all the light we cannot see onto the counter. Emma arched a brow. I take it that means you finished the book? He nodded, tapping the cover. It was beautifully written, but depressing. She smirked. I did warn you it was different. Alex exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. Yeah, I'll admit, you've got good taste. I know I have good taste, she corrected, already reaching for another book. But before she could hand it to him, he surprised her. I have one for you, he said, pulling a book out of his coat pocket and placing it on the counter. Emma blinked. The Midnight Library. Her fingers hovered over the cover. You read this? He nodded. It's about second chances, about what life could have been if you had made different choices. Thought you might like it. Emma stared at him, the weight of his words sinking in deeper than they should have. She didn't know why, but something about the way he said it made her feel like he understood, like he saw the uncertainty she tried so hard to hide. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then, Alex leaned against the counter, watching her with quiet curiosity. Why do I get the feeling you needed a second chance at something? Emma stiffened. That's a personal question. Alex didn't apologize. He just shrugged. You don't have to answer. She hesitated, running a thumb over the book's spine. Maybe it was the rain. Maybe it was the way he looked at her, like he wasn't just asking to pass the time. Let's just say, I thought my life was going in one direction, and then it didn't. She met his gaze. Ever had that happen? His jaw tightened slightly. It was subtle, but she caught it. Yeah, he admitted, voice quieter now. I have. Emma wasn't sure what to say to that. So instead, she changed the subject. You want another book, or was this just a rainy day visit? Alex chuckled, the tension between them easing. Another book, of course. Hit me with your best shot. Emma handed him a copy of Before We Were Strangers. Old flames, missed timing, love that never really died, she explained. Alex studied her for a second. Sounds familiar. Emma narrowed her eyes. Are you saying your life is like that? He smirked, grabbing the book. Maybe. You'll have to keep recommending books to find out. As he walked out into the rain, Emma found herself smiling. She had a feeling this was far from their last conversation. The next time Emma saw Alex, it wasn't in the bookstore. It was late, almost midnight, when she walked into a small cafe on the corner of town, desperate for something warm after a long, exhausting day. The moment she stepped inside, she spotted him. He was sitting by the window, a cup of coffee in front of him, staring at something outside. His expression was unreadable, but there was something about the way his fingers lightly tapped the table that made him look lost. Emma hesitated. She could walk past him, pretend she hadn't seen him. But before she could decide, Alex turned his head, and their eyes met. For a second, neither of them moved. Then, he gestured toward the empty seat across from him. Couldn't sleep either? Emma sighed, walking over. Something like that. As she slid into the seat, a waitress passed by. Emma ordered a hot chocolate, wrapping her hands around the warmth of the cup when it arrived. Alex took a slow sip of his coffee. Rough day. Emma exhaled. Long day. He nodded, as if he understood exactly what she meant. For a while, they just sat there in comfortable silence. The cafe was quiet, save for the soft hum of jazz playing from the speakers and the occasional clatter of cups from behind the counter. Then Alex spoke. I had someone once. Emma looked up, startled by the confession. He wasn't looking at her, his gaze was distant, fixed on the darkened street outside. We were together for years, he continued. I thought she was the one. But things didn't go the way I thought they would. Emma studied him. There was something heavy in his voice, something unspoken. What happened? She asked softly. Alex hesitated for a moment before answering. She left. Emma's heart clenched. She knew that kind of pain too well. I'm sorry, she murmured. Alex gave a short laugh, but there was no humor in it. It's been a while. I should be over it by now. But you're not. His jaw tightened. He didn't deny it. Emma hesitated before speaking again. Sometimes, people leave for reasons we don't understand. And sometimes, she trailed off, her fingers tightening around her cup. Sometimes, they never really leave at all. Alex finally looked at her then, his gaze searching. And you? Emma swallowed. She hadn't meant to open up about herself, but something about him, about this moment, made it feel safe. I loved someone once, she admitted. For years. He never noticed. Alex's eyes darkened slightly. And now? Emma managed a small smile. Now, I'm just trying to live my life without waiting for someone who is never mine to begin with. For a long time, Alex didn't say anything. Then, after what felt like forever, he reached for his cup and murmured, Maybe you were always meant for something more. Emma's breath hitched. She wasn't sure why those words made her chest tighten, why they felt like a promise or a warning. But as they sat there, two people with unfinished stories, she couldn't shake the feeling that whatever this was between them, it was just beginning. The next time Emma saw Alex, he wasn't alone. She had just finished stacking a new set of books on display when the bell above the bookstore's door chimed. She looked up, expecting another customer, but instead, she saw her. Natalie. The woman Alex once loved. Emma's fingers froze over the book she was holding. She had only seen pictures of Natalie before, back when she was foolish enough to look her up, back when Alex was nothing more than a distant, unattainable wish. But now, Natalie was real, standing just a few feet away, her delicate features illuminated by the soft glow of the bookstore lights. And Alex, he stood beside her, looking unreadable. Emma, he said, his voice careful. She forced herself to smile, though her heart was pounding in her chest. Hey. Natalie tilted her head, studying her with quiet curiosity. You're Emma? There was something about the way she said it that made Emma's stomach tighten, as if she had heard about her before. Emma nodded. That's me. Natalie smiled, polite, practiced. Alex has mentioned you. Emma stole a glance at him, but he was already looking at her. His expression was unreadable, but there was something in his gaze that unsettled her. She cleared her throat, turning back to Natalie. I hope it was something good. Natalie laughed lightly. He said you have good taste in books. Emma exhaled, relieved that was all she said. I try my best. There was a pause, a strange tension lingering in the air. Then, Natalie turned back to Alex. I'll wait for you outside. He gave a small nod and she walked out, leaving just the two of them. The moment the door shut, Emma finally let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding. Emma, Alex said softly. She shook her head, forcing a smile. You don't have to explain anything to me. He frowned. I wasn't going to explain. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I didn't expect you two to meet like this. Emma swallowed the lump in her throat. It's fine, Alex. Really? But it wasn't fine. Because for the first time in weeks, she felt like an outsider again. Like she had stepped into a story that wasn't hers to begin with. And maybe she never should have. The rain began to pour again that evening. Emma found herself staring at the window, her mind too tangled to focus on the books in front of her. It had been hours since Alex had left the bookstore, but she couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that had settled in her chest. Natalie had left just after their brief exchange, and while Emma tried to brush off the encounter, a part of her couldn't. Alex's past. The woman who had left him. The woman who, despite their quiet reunion, still seemed to have a hold on him. Was Emma just a distraction? A temporary escape from the memories he couldn't escape? She didn't know why it hurt, but it did. A knock at the door broke her from her thoughts. She wasn't expecting anyone, and for a moment, she debated whether to ignore it. But something inside her urged her to open it. When she did, Alex was standing on the other side, his jacket soaked, his hair drenched. His gaze softened when he saw her, but there was an intensity in his eyes that made her breath catch. I didn't think you'd still be here, he said, voice laced with the rain's weight. Emma stepped aside, gesturing for him to come in. I wasn't going to leave yet. He entered, shaking off the water before taking off his jacket. I needed to talk to you, Alex said, his voice firm but hesitant. Emma crossed her arms, trying to steady the beat of her heart. What about? His eyes met hers, his expression earnest. What happened today with Natalie? It's not what you think. Emma's pulse quickened, but she kept her voice calm. Isn't it? She's your ex, Alex. I mean, you two seemed comfortable. Familiar. Alex walked closer, each step echoing in the quiet room. We were, but that's all in the past. I haven't seen her in months. She came to town to tie up loose ends. Emma swallowed, unwilling to admit how much the conversation was affecting her. And those loose ends brought her straight here? Alex paused. Emma, listen to me. He took a step closer, his voice quiet but firm. She wasn't what I thought she was. When she left, it wasn't just a breakup. It broke me, in ways I didn't even understand. But it wasn't love that was lost. It was me. Emma's chest tightened. What are you saying? I'm saying that what I had with her was never what I thought it was, Alex continued, his voice low but urgent. And I'm saying that since meeting you, I've realized I've been holding on to a ghost for too long. Emma blinked, trying to make sense of his words. What do you mean? I mean that the past doesn't matter anymore. He stepped even closer now, the space between them nearly non-existent. I'm here now, with you. And I don't want to lose that chance. Emma's heart thudded louder. She felt torn between disbelief and hope. Could she trust him? Could she believe that everything between them, every awkward moment, every stolen glance, wasn't just some temporary distraction? But before she could speak, Alex reached out, his hand gently brushing her arm. His touch was soft, tentative, as if unsure how to bridge the gap that had lingered between them for so long. I've been a fool, he whispered. I thought I needed to fix everything, but all I needed was to stop running. Emma's breath caught in her throat. He was standing so close, his eyes locked on hers with a vulnerability she hadn't seen before. What do you want from me, Alex? She asked softly, her voice barely a whisper. He took another step forward, his breath warm against her skin. I want you, Emma. I want the chance to make this right. The words hung between them, and for a moment, Emma didn't know what to say. Her heart was racing, her thoughts jumbled. He had hurt her before, but now, there was something real in his eyes, something she couldn't ignore. I need time, she said quietly, stepping back slightly, breaking the spell. Alex didn't pull away. He stayed close, his eyes soft. Take all the time you need, but know that I'm here, whenever you're ready. Emma looked up at him, feeling a strange sense of relief wash over her. There was still so much to work through, so many things unsaid, but she realized that maybe, just maybe, she was ready to try again. With a small nod, she offered him a faint smile. "I'll think about it." Alex smiled back, a quiet promise in his expression. "I'll be waiting." As he left, the rain still tapping against the window, Emma couldn't help but wonder if this was the beginning of something new, or if it was another chapter in a story still unfolding. The following days felt like an endless whirlpool. Emma went through the motions of her everyday life, opening the bookstore, shelving books, greeting regulars, but her mind was never far from Alex. His words echoed in her head at night, a whisper she couldn't shake. "I want you." But what did that really mean? Was he truly ready to let go of his past with Natalie, or was he simply caught in the emotional aftermath of seeing her again? Emma couldn't stop wondering if she was just a temporary distraction, a comfort that would fade once his unresolved feelings were settled. She spent hours thinking about it, replaying their conversation over and over. And yet, every time she closed her eyes, she found herself looking at him, his warm, intense gaze, the way he seemed to be waiting for her answer, as if he was silently asking her to believe him. But was she ready to? It wasn't until the weekend, when she was alone at the bookstore, that her answer came to her. The bell over the door chimed, and she glanced up to see Alex standing there, looking hesitant, his hands shoved deep into the pockets of his jacket. For a split second, Emma froze, unsure of what to say or how to act. But then, she simply let out a breath and smiled, though it was small. "Hey." Alex's eyes softened, though his expression was still a mix of uncertainty and hope.
"Hey."
"I didn't mean to interrupt." "You didn't. What's up?" she asked, trying to sound casual. She gestured toward the counter. "Want some coffee?" Alex nodded, his lips lifting slightly.
"Sure."
"Thanks." As Emma made the coffee, she could feel his eyes on her, watching her movements. When she placed the cup in front of him, their fingers brushed, and for a moment, neither of them pulled away. She wasn't sure what was happening between them, if it was love, or simply the remnants of something broken trying to rebuild. "Look," Alex began, breaking the silence between them, "I'm not good with words, but I need to tell you something. I know I hurt you." He ran a hand through his hair, looking frustrated. "I was selfish. I thought I could just move on from everything, but it was never that simple." Emma stayed quiet, watching him intently. She had heard this before, but there was something in his eyes now, something real. "I let my past control me," Alex continued, his voice steadying. "I let my mistakes define me. But since I've met you, I've realized that I've been holding on to a version of myself that doesn't exist anymore. You made me see that." Emma felt the weight of his words, a gentle but steady force pushing her to listen. She hadn't realized how much he had been carrying, how much of his past had shaped him. "I don't want to be that person anymore," Alex said, his gaze unwavering. "I want to be someone who deserves you. If you can give me that chance, I'll prove it to you." Emma exhaled, her chest tight. "It's not that simple, Alex. I don't know if I can just forget everything that happened with you and Natalie. I don't know if I can trust that it's real." "I understand," Alex said, nodding. "And I'll never ask you to forget. But I'm asking for a chance to show you. Not just with words, but with actions." He paused, leaning forward, his eyes searching hers. "Please, Emma. I'm asking for the chance to love you. The right way." For a long moment, Emma stayed silent, trying to make sense of everything. She had been hurt, betrayed, and yet, here he was, bearing his soul. And despite everything, she felt a flicker of hope, a small spark of something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. "I need time, Alex," Emma said softly, her voice thick with emotion. "I need to know this is real. I need to know you're not just doing this because you're confused or afraid of what you've lost." "I know," Alex replied, his voice soft but firm. "I'll wait. For however long it takes." Emma nodded, a small but sincere smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "Then I'll think about it. I'll really think about it." As he left the bookstore that evening, Emma watched him walk away with a sense of uncertainty, but also with a sense of peace. She wasn't ready to make any promises, not yet. But she was finally starting to believe that maybe, just maybe, they could rebuild something that had once been lost. And perhaps that was the most important step of all. The following week was filled with a quiet, gentle sort of tension. Emma found herself slipping into her daily routine, but now there was a constant undercurrent of anticipation, like waiting for something to happen. Every time she caught a glimpse of Alex, whether it was through the window of the bookstore or in passing around town, her heart would flutter in a way she couldn't quite control. But even with that, the walls she had carefully built around herself remained intact. She wasn't ready to let go of her caution. She wasn't sure she ever would be. Then came the night of the town's annual festival. It was an event Emma had attended for years, one of those small-town traditions where everyone gathered for food, music, and fireworks. But this time it felt different. This time, she knew Alex would be there. As she walked through the crowd, the scent of grilled food and the sound of laughter surrounding her, Emma's thoughts kept drifting back to him. He had made her an offer to take a chance. And she couldn't stop wondering if it was worth it. There was still so much between them. So many unspoken words. So many painful memories she wasn't sure she was ready to face. But there was also something else. The soft, tender hope that had begun to grow in her chest, the feeling that maybe, just maybe, she could believe in this. In them. Emma found herself standing near the makeshift stage, watching the fireworks being set up. The sky was slowly darkening, and the first few bursts of light began to flicker, brightening the horizon with sparks of color. The crowd cheered, their voices mixing with the distant sound of music. And then, in the midst of the spectacle, Emma felt a gentle tap on her shoulder. She turned, and there he was, Alex. "Hey," he said, his voice low and warm. His eyes were soft, the lines of tension she had seen in him before now replaced with something more certain, more steady. "Hey," she replied, her breath catching in her throat. He stepped closer, his presence enveloping her, but this time, she didn't pull away. There was something calming about the way he was standing there, waiting for her. "I didn't think you'd come," Emma said, her voice barely audible over the noise of the festival. Alex smiled, the corners of his eyes crinkling. "I said I'd wait, didn't I?" Emma nodded, her heart skipping a beat. "You did." A comfortable silence stretched between them as they both watched the fireworks light up the sky, but this time, Emma felt the connection between them shift. It wasn't just the remnants of the past or the hopes of a future that held them together. It was something real. Something that had always been there, waiting for the right moment. "I've been thinking," Emma said quietly, her eyes still on the fireworks. "About everything. About what you said." Alex turned toward her, his gaze intent, his attention fully on her. "What did you decide?" Emma hesitated for a moment, then looked up at him, her eyes meeting his. "I've decided that I can't keep holding on to the past, Alex. It's too heavy. And I can't keep living in fear of getting hurt." She swallowed, her heart pounding in her chest. "But I also know that what we have now is different. It's real. And I'm willing to give us a chance if you are." For a moment, Alex didn't speak. He just stood there, staring at her as if she had just said the most important thing in the world. Then, slowly, a smile spread across his face, one of the most genuine, soft smiles she had ever seen. "I'm more than willing," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I've been waiting for you to say that." And then, just as the fireworks exploded above them, painting the sky with brilliant colors, Alex reached out and gently took her hand. It wasn't a grand declaration. It wasn't some sweeping gesture. But it was enough. Because for the first time in what felt like forever, Emma allowed herself to believe in the possibility of love again. Not the kind of love built on illusions or past regrets, but the kind that could grow from the ground up, brick by brick, slow and steady. As the fireworks lit up the sky, Emma and Alex stood together, hand in hand, watching the beauty unfold above them, their hearts finally in sync. And for the first time, Emma felt like everything was falling into place.